With that, welcome inside this midweek edition of Big Ten Today. Rick Pizzo, Andy Katz, on the morning after what I believe to be the best night that we've seen this season in Big Ten basketball. There have been other individual games which maybe match up with what we saw in Lincoln and Champaign, but to have that 2 for Tuesday on the menu, to me, it was as good as it gets for a college basketball fan.
And for road teams in this league to win in overtime in both games, and we had basically a set of 4 teams that we're going to be talking a lot about into February, into March, that all have a chance to win a couple of games, if not more, in the NCAA tournament.
We'll get into some of that road success against quality competition in just a bit with some numbers that will open your eyes. But we begin with the big story and the 3 games that we saw within one game in Lincoln. Purdue jumps out to a 22-point lead against Nebraska. The Huskers somehow find a way to battle all the way back. They force overtime, and then in OT, Purdue survives 80-77. Andy's talking about those road wins. Purdue now has 2 road wins over AP top 10 opponents already this season. The Boilermakers had fallen off a bit outside the top 10, now perhaps answering some questions. Listen, there were moments where you thought Purdue is going to give this game away, and they were one rink mast made free throw from doing exactly that. Yet they go into overtime, and at the end of the day, they leave Lincoln with one of the best road wins in the year.
Yeah, and that game you're talking about earlier, remember way back in the non-conference, they won in Tuscaloosa against Alabama when Alabama was, sort of for the most part had their full complement of players. This is now back-to-back games where Fletcher Lawyer has risen back up to being the player that we've expected. He ends up with 18. He hit the big 3 to beat Oregon over the weekend, a game that they almost gave away as well to a 1-win team in the Big Ten. So they were flirting with some danger zone had they lost this game. And the writing was on the wall to lose this game because of the way they'd been playing. They had not been playing well heading into this game because they should not have been in a game with Oregon at Mackey, and yet they were and really could have lost it. So this is a great confidence boost for them. I think it resets everything. The fact that Oscar Clough ends up having sort of the winning bucket, the transfer big, another big boost for him, because all these pieces they're going to need down the stretch. They still have a very difficult schedule. They do get Michigan at home next week on Tuesday night. But look, they needed this. They still have aspirations to getting to Indianapolis and almost having a home Final Four. Long runway before we get there. But I think this was a very important win for them.
You mentioned Oscar Clough. He and TKR combined for 33 rebounds on Tuesday night, 4 shy of Nebraska's entire team total. Of course, he scored the game-winning basket in overtime as well while getting fouled. He and TKR have been a chemistry experiment that hasn't necessarily worked, I don't think, the way that Matt Painter expected it to work. But we saw on Tuesday night that it can work if it is massaged and managed the right way.
Yeah, I mean, look, with those two and obviously with Daniel Jacobson, they should be the better team in the post against, even though Rick Mass, can hold his own. You got Burke, Buchtengel. He obviously can sort of bang around in there, but Purdue has more talent. They have more experience inside. And so this was a case where they should out-rebound them, and they did. Now, there have been other instances where they've had the advantage and have not exploited it the way they did last night.
Of course, you also have Braden Smith, who is just 2 rebounds shy of a triple-double on Tuesday night. A lot of chatter right now about the guy who was the preseason National Player of the Year, not even being the favorite for the Big Ten Player of the Year. Perhaps Keaton Wagler has overtaken that with his performance over the past 4 to 6 weeks. I'm still not sure that there's another guy that you want with the ball in his hands in moments like the moments that Purdue faced over and over again on Tuesday night.
No, I think you're exactly right. And think about over the weekend, Keaton Wagler, who is only a freshman, who was sort of thrust into this role of an elite player. We're going to talk about Illinois shortly here. He had a chance to be that hero against Michigan State. It didn't happen over the weekend. I still, all things being equal, not about NBA, but in this instance, who do you want the ball in their hands for a last-minute play or shot? You're going to lean Braden Smith. And while, we all do these, we all project who could be player of the year, there's still, 3-4 weeks left. It's not over. I mean, no one's handing it to Wagler over Smith. I mean, Smith definitely can still be a back-to-back Big Ten Player of the Year.
Yeah, I think Jackson Lendeborg, for my money, should also be in that conversation.
Oh, yeah, no, he is.
His numbers aren't going to be as big as other guys' numbers because he shares so much of the sugar with other Michigan stars, but he's having a phenomenal year. I do want to touch on Nebraska. They start 20-0. Obviously, the schedule got much more difficult over the last couple of weeks. They were moments away from beating Michigan. They were still somewhat shorthanded because Rink Mass really wasn't himself against Illinois, but they also had an opportunity to win this game. How much has our perspective and our viewpoint of what Nebraska is, and maybe more importantly, what Nebraska can be in March, been changed by the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, I mean, and maybe we put too much on them because they had such this great start. All your points are valid as to why they were where they were, but also in talking to a couple other Big Ten coaches before the show, Nebraska was a team that sort of had a head start. We talked so much about all their overlapping season win streak from the Crown to this season. They had experienced players. Even the guys that didn't play last year, Rink Mass, hurt, but been in the program. Jamarcus Lawrence, been in the program, bounced back from URI. It was really only Price Sanford that they really had to work back in. And it's pretty easy to do that when he's making shots. He can find his role pretty easily. So they had a bit of a head start. It was almost like they went on a foreign trip and other teams didn't at the beginning of the season. It's taken everyone else till February in this new portal era to find their footing. Nebraska already had it. It just feels like everyone's catching up. They have sort of the easier schedule of others. But
I was just about to get to that.
They still have 2 games against Iowa, and they have the LA trip. None of that's going to be easy.
Yeah. So you take that Iowa game. They do have Northwestern before Iowa. That's at home. Monster favorite in that. At Iowa, obviously a tough ask. But then you're at home against Penn State. You're at home against Maryland. You travel to USC. That's the end of February. I know that no game in the Big Ten is ever a given, but that is as favorable a schedule as any Big Ten team that's toward the top of the standings has, certainly at least through the end of February. And if the game weren't one overtime enough for you, we decided to throw another OT Big Ten game in the mix. Wisconsin over Illinois, 92-90, yes, in overtime. First time since 2015-16 that the Badgers have had 2 AP top 10 road wins. Also, had been a minute since they won in Champaign. Greg Gard, very happy with this W post-game. Dare I say, Brad Underwood, slightly less pleased with the outcome and how it all came about.
Yeah, we were not happy with how we finished that, but we, as I told them, I found a lot of mistakes on film that we made, and we showed them. So you have to control what you can control.
We'll send the missed out-of-bounds play in the first play of the overtime. That's egregious, right? I mean, it's egregious. We will definitely send in the 10-second call that happens. I mean, he's 5 feet from getting across half court, and there's 10-second call. And we got guys that miss that, and they're making I mean, it's just, I don't know. I don't know what to do with it. I don't know. I'm done talking to people. I don't get called. I'm done. I'm frustrated as heck.
Brad Underwood saying one of the officials in last night's game he hadn't seen in 2 years. 2 years, he said.
But he was a Final Four official.
I understand. I'm just quoting.
Yes.
Just quoting here. So, Andy, you brought up all the top 10 road wins by Big Ten teams this season. Wisconsin, Purdue, Illinois, each with 2. That's 6 between 3 teams. The rest of all of Division I basketball combined has 7 such wins. So it's been an amazing performance by Big Ten teams on the road. I wasn't really sure what to make of this one because there was never any true separation, and both teams had issues defending the other. Illinois could not stop Nick Boyd over and over into the lane, freeing everything up, and Wisconsin had no answer for Keaton Wagler. Time and time again, we saw switches, and Austin Rapp, who had a great offensive game, trying to defend Keaton Wagler, which is the dictionary definition of a mismatch.
So let me unpack a couple things here first, and I've talked to both head coaches. First, on the officiating. If it were up to Brad and others, they would love for the officials to be employees. But this isn't the NBA, it's not NFL, they're independent contractors. So you are going to get different officials throughout the course of the season that are going to work multiple conferences. They're going to try to get, where they can make the most money. And so you're going to have crews that may not have worked together, that may do different games, that you haven't seen in 2 years. That's the reality. The reality is these officials are independent contractors. They're not employees. The only time that it was sort of like that was during COVID when they had to have a set officials because of COVID restrictions.
All right, so let's leave it at that because it is what it is.
Yes.
And we know coaches in February are going to complain about
Yes.
officiating. That's just a fact. As for the game,
I will tell you, first of all, in Illinois, they were missing Andrei Stojakovic out with an ankle injury.
And Kylan Boswell,
of course. Boswell. So on one side, you say, hey, Illinois played a heck of a game to get it to overtime and have a lead without 2 of your starters. But I also think that they're at a point now defensively, because those are two of their best defenders, where they're getting a little bit exposed. And it happened toward the end of the Michigan State game. And so until they get healthy, they're vulnerable. No question about it. They got Indiana this weekend. Indiana can, make threes. That's going to be a difficult game for them. For Wisconsin, Nick Boyd, it has taken some time, but he has found his footing working with John Blackwell. And John Blackwell, like last season, and talking to Greg Gard, he had John Tonje. Blackwell is a guy that really plays well off of someone where the ball doesn't have to be in his hands all the time, where he doesn't need to be the guy. He's really excelled playing off of Tonje last season, now Boyd. And it's taken Wisconsin a little bit of time here to find themselves to where it fits offensively. I think you mentioned the two road wins. They scored over 90 in both of them. They have changed the way they play. Greg Gard has done an unbelievable job of adapting to the current climate and saying, look, we have to make shots. We've got to score more. It's kind of simple and basic. We're going away from that other era, and that's what they're doing. In Illinois, unbelievable talent, unbelievable player in Wagler. They're going to be fine once they get healthy.
And let's stop talking about Wisconsin in terms of should they be nervous about the bubble in the NCAA tournament. With the wins that they have already, they are an NCAA tournament team unless the bottom completely falls off.
No, I think they're a single-digit
through the
seed
month.
for sure.
Yeah, through the month of February. Now, they do have Michigan State next. The good news is that game's at home. They also have Ohio State and Iowa before they go west, but their West Coast trip at the end of February is Oregon and Washington. So it may not be as favorable as Nebraska's, but you have to like what Wisconsin has the rest of February in terms of the opportunity to even better their tournament seeding.
Yeah, and look, I think we're going to touch on this, but it's going to be quite a battle behind Michigan for who the other three teams are that get the double bye or triple bye, I guess we now say, to play until Friday. And Wisconsin is certainly in the mix now.
And we will get more on Illinois' schedule coming up in just a bit. For Illinois, though, similar question to what I asked you about Nebraska. Really tough games, but it's also been something of a difficult week. So have your thoughts changed at all on Illinois? And what happens when Kylan Boswell comes back and is healthy? And how much does that affect what Keaton Wagler has become?
Yeah, I'm not worried about them as long as they get healthy. I think it was kind of foolish to have the conversation. Are they better without Kylan Boswell?
Oh, I'm not.
I'm not
no way am I insinuating
that was sort of floating out there in the cloud.
No, he's their best defender by far.
Yes, and they were able to beat Purdue without him guarding Braden Smith because Wagler had a historic 46-point game. Maybe they don't beat Purdue, and it's exposed that they don't have their best on-the-ball defender if he doesn't have this Superman-like performance. So I'm not worried about Illinois. They can score with the best of them when they're healthy. I mean, remember Stojakovic, I think it was the game after Boswell went down, scored 30.
Yep.
So, he's a player that can go off like that.
Yeah, I would say outside of Michigan, to me, when Illinois has a full complement of players, when everybody is healthy and playing their best, they're the toughest matchup for any team in the country from the Big Ten, not named the Michigan Wolverines. All right, we're back.